TNT Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade. They are the big boys on the block, crowd pleasers wherever they go. They are the monster trucks, and we have them right here for you today at the Houston Astrodome.
Hello, I'm Paul Page, and those monster trucks certainly have their share of noise and excitement. Quite a contrast to the peace, the tranquility of the Gulf of Mexico, not far from Houston. Well, we've got plenty of noise and excitement coming up for the TNT All-American. Not only the monster trucks themselves, but two different categories of pulling. In fact, let's go over to the Houston Astrodome right now. My colleague, Steve Evans.
Paul, what would you get if you took a 1,700 horsepower supercharged engine out of a drag racing top alcohol dragster, about, 24 feet in wheelbase, and put it in an 8-foot-long chassis? Well, you'd get a nasty little critter like this one, what the pulling sport calls a mini rod. And today we bring you this competition for the very first time. And actually, this engine is bigger than drag racing even allows. This is 572 cubic inches of blown areas. Now, typical dragster design here is the bell housing with a multi-disc clutch inside, a Lenco 2-speed like many of the drag racing cars use, the steering wheel assembly, the roll cage and seat assembler. And back in the drivetrain department, again, you'll find this kind of differential at drag strips all over the world, the Dana 60 with a magnesium center section. So to apply the word rod to this machine is very appropriate. Now, for the third category of competition, let's go to the newest member of the Diamond P Sports broadcasting team. Meet Pat Patterson.
Well, thanks very much, Steve. The third category of vehicles and the first pullers tonight in the Astrodome will be the four-wheel drive machines. Now, this is Russ DeForce's Outlaw out of West Palm Beach, Florida, and some machine it is. These are fuel-injected machines, and they make about 1,000 horsepower, average about 1,000 horsepower amongst all of these trucks. The real secret, Steve, is the weighting on the front end of these machines. These machines, you don't want to see the wheels come up when they take off. You want to make sure that that weight displacement keeps those front wheels on the ground, because with four wheels turning, the more wheels turning and the more power on the ground, the faster they can get the sled down the straightaway that they've got to run. They're exciting machines, and this is one of the most competitive classes, so you're really going to see a good show. It's a pleasure to be with Diamond P, and things are getting started. Let's go back to Paul Page.
Well, we're set for the action. There's Ron Hickson. He's going to be a key factor in most of the evening because he keeps track of this machine. That's the decision maker. He determines the weight, how fast it's going to move, and he'll be making the determination for this man. Our first puller, that's Manuel Moreno, the Yellow Rose of Texas.
We saw Manuel win here in the Astrodome a year ago. He is already underway. Again, 6,200-pound 4x4 vehicle. Manuel with an engine well over 600 cubic inches. A beautifully designed truck, and what would appear to be a fairly good pull. Of course, we won't know until we see the competition behind him.
Well, Steve, they set the full pull distance at 300 feet. Moreno pulls 277.46, but right down the middle. Looks like he had good control. He might be able to dig in a little more.
Let's take a look at the replay. You remember Pat Patterson said the balance was everything, the weighting on the front axle. Well, Manuel appears to have everything just right there. We saw a little puff of smoke out of the left bank of the engine, so it might be just a taste down on power. But this is what a four-wheel drive truck pull should look like. Manuel Moreno, Seguin, Texas.
Yeah, the machine is set out nice and flat, which means he's getting traction on all four wheels, and that's critical here. Now, the next puller is Michael Johnson. The vehicle is the Oklahoma Showdown. But first, let's find out what Manuel Moreno thought about his run. As we go down to the far end, here's Pat Patterson.
Okay, your first impression.
I had a good run, and I think that'll be hard to beat me now.
Now, the last time you said that here on TNN, you stood around here and you won it.
Right.
think you can do this again?
I think we can.
All right, Manny, hang around. We'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Okay, Manuel Moreno has set the distance to shoot at 277.46 feet. And here's the man hooking. That's the correct term in this sport. This is Michael Johnson in Oklahoma Showdown. Now, this is the S10 version of the Chevrolet pickup with the big block engine. Chevrolet called it a big block at 454. If these guys can't get it to 600 inches, it's just a tiny little motor, Paul.
Yeah, and you saw them hook up a very key instrument there. That's the safety shutdown. If for any reason that would unhook, it'll also shut the vehicle down immediately, so it's very safe.
Now, it looks as if Michael might have the weight bias towards the rear a little bit. The front tire's not getting the kind of traction they need, and he digs a hole as the weight transfers 266.07 feet, and that will put him into second place right now. You can see the exhaust header sticking up there and the giant air cleaner on the top of the carburetors. There are no superchargers allowed in this category.
I think you called it exactly right, Steve. The back end, now watch the relative dig from the back to the front. I think he's got the weight sitting just a little bit too far to the back. That's something that he can adjust if he comes back for another pull. But you see that the front tends to be spinning. It also looks, Steve, like his course might be a little hard and a little slick.
And the competition to come, it will be interesting to see where they line up. Each driver can pick his own spot at the starting area, and they may try to get away from the particular ruts that have been dug by Moreno and also Johnson. Again, the distance here is 266.07 feet for the second position in the standing so far in this 4x4 truck pulling class.
And you can bet that every driver to come is back watching the run, watching where they are. Well, two on board, only one of them human, and that's Robert Smith. Bob Smith in the Three Bears, and you, I guess, understand why.
Well, Paul, in the cockpit are just two bears, so the other one must be under the hood, huh?
Must be the vehicle itself. Sometimes I'm not sure why they name any of these things the way they do. All right, he's back, he's hooked, he's ready to go. The revs come up. Looks like he came off a little slow. He might have been afraid of digging in. He's got a nice pull going, though. Nice even traction on all four wheels in this four-wheel class.
But again, neither he nor Johnson appeared to have the initial kind of wheel speed that Manuel Moreno enjoyed. And indeed, he comes up a foot short even of Johnson at 265.52 feet, and that will put him in that third position.
Yeah, you have to be careful with it. On one hand, you got to get as much wheel spin as possible. On the other hand, if you have too much wheel spin, then you lose all the traction. With 3 pulls completed, Moreno is at the top of the order with that pull of 277.46 feet. The full pull was set at 300. We'll be right back.
There's thunder in the Astrodome. Welcome back, everyone, to the TNT All-American. I'm Steve Evans, along with Paul Page and Pat Patterson. And here is our fourth puller in the four-wheel drive truck class, Robert Gallahan, Manassas Red. It's called, and for a real good reason, from Manassas, Virginia.
And a bright red truck. It really reflects the light here in the Astrodome. 277.46 feet. That's the distance to beat. Up on the decision maker, he'd make sure it's all hooked up right and that the weight is set right. And from his perch high up on the back, that's the responsibility of Ron Hickson.
All right, Robert Gallahan is ready to take his try. Remember, there's no practice in this sport. Robert has to hope that he's selected the right gear in which to pull this sled. He has a choice of a few of these special transmissions. The weight lock plans forward and drags Robert to a halt, but not before he takes the #1 spot.
Boy, that was a nice little run. 283.7 feet. He really came out with just enough traction. And like everyone else, I'm impressed. They've all been pulling right down the middle. Good, clean run.
Oh, absolutely. And the toe-in on the vehicle, well, take a look. See how the tires are towed in? Now, that may be to help throw that dirt off to the side so that it doesn't pile up in front of the rear wheels and just give them extra duty.
That also helps the thing steer straight. Anytime you get some toe in there, it does help the steering on the machine. And the four-wheel drive steering can be critical. You can see he gets just enough wheel spin. He looks like he's got pretty good balance. The thing is rocking nice and even. That means that the weight is transferring properly. He seems like he should be satisfied with that run. Manassas Red takes the lead.
Well, Robert, that's how you wanted to start. Yeah, it's a pretty good start there. I don't know how it's going to hold up. I might have had the wrong gear, but it's put me in the lead right now, but there's a lot of good trouble. Anything you think you can do to make it any better? Maybe come up 1 gear, but we'll have to wait and see. Good run. Thank you.
Well, Bob, with the distance to beat now at 283.7 feet.
And he won't have to worry tonight, Paul, about making that gear change decision because he's either going to win or lose. The only time you'd get a second shot would be if more than one competitor did a full pull and then there was a pull-off. So that's a new question at this point for him.
Well, here's a brand new truck we've never seen before, brought by Charlie Lowe. He calls it the Killer 2.
And this is a Ford vehicle, and to a lot of fans in the stands, that's important if they own a Ford truck. You hear a lot of cheering for the various makes of 4x4 vehicles. And here comes that box Ford. That's what drags you to a halt. You can see the injectors were just wide open. And the pull is a nice one, but not good enough. 273.12 feet, and that was locked Charlie in third place behind Robert Gallahan and Manuel Marino. And still on top of that incredible pull of over 283 feet, Robert Gallahan.
Well, Charlie's still learning a little bit about this new Ford truck of his. It's brand new, and I think he's going to have to go back and think about it a little bit. He came up 20 feet short. But now they pour some extra fuel into the front of the injectors, and take a look up in the cockpit here. Out of Oklahoma, that's Donna Webb. The vehicle is Sudden Impact.
And Donna is an experienced puller, and that's what it takes is experience, not strength, not anything other than just having done it time after time after time. All right, let's go to Pat with Charlie Lowe at the finish line.
Well, Charlie, you got a brand new truck for 1990, and you got to be happy with that pull.
It's bouncing a little bit.
What are you going to do to get it in shape?
I worked on it today. I'll have to work on it a little more. Springs, I think.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Well, that's part of the problem with any new vehicle. You have to learn its personality. Charlie will obviously work with it, and he'll probably come back and take a look at some videotape as well to see exactly what the vehicle was doing.
You know, pulling this far down in order can be good and bad. It can be good for Donna in that she's had a chance to watch other drivers and see how their techniques work on this racetrack. It can be bad in that the track can be so torn up there's no traction. But tonight, this track is holding up beautifully. Donna is hooked and has got a good one going.
She got a little wheel spin going there, and that pulled her off the course. And, of course, anytime you drift one way or other, that's footage that you could have been using in the straight line. She only comes up at 276.44 feet.
But that's good for third place and a pretty good payday here in the Astrodome.
Take a look at Donna's run one more time. Now, you see that she gets a lot of wheel spin right away. And as Steve pointed out, the track is holding up particularly well.
That's what hurt her, Paul. She got just a little bit sideways. And maybe wasn't using the steering wheel quite as well as she could have. You don't think of one of these 4x4s as getting sideways, but when they do, you've got to react very quickly to try to keep it in a straight line.
Well, here's a familiar vehicle. It's Stitches. That's Jim Lyons on board. Now he's setting his sights on that 283.7 feet pull that he will need if he wants to move up into the top position. He applies the power, pulls away, a bit slow. Now he picks up some speed.
Just a beautiful truck out of Louisville, Kentucky, and this looks good.
Nice run going. Nice run. But he comes up just a little bit short. Jim Lyons, Stitches at 277.31 feet. Not far enough.
That puts Jim in the third spot and bumps Donna Webb down into fourth. Jim Lyons at 277.31 feet. Just a magnificent-looking vehicle, as they all are here this year, Paul.
Jim Lyons, a veteran on this circuit. As we take a look at his run again, I'm not so sure, Steve, that he didn't have a similar problem to the one that Donna Webb had, as he started almost right away, drifting off to the left. And, of course, as you get too close to that white line over on the left, you have to think about steering the vehicle. And anytime you do that, well, that's taking away from the straight line pull. So he comes in at 277.3 and goes into the third position.
Well, Jim, talk to me. How was it? What did you think of the track, and what do you think of that pass?
I might have been geared a little bit high, but it was a decent run. I can't complain about it. Track's good.
Is either side of that track better than the other at this point, you think, left or right?
I can't see no difference. It all looks the same.
Well, Paul, you seldom see a man as dominant in this class as Robert Gallahan has been so far. 283 feet, and his closest competitor, the champion Manuel Marino, with only 277 feet. Now, the 4x4 truck, the idea is to glue them to the ground. With a monster truck, it's to fly them through the air.
We're
back at the Houston Astrodome for the TNT All-American, and we're ready for the monster trucks. There is the Mad Dog out of Jefferson City, Missouri, Bob Breen at the controls. He will face the Carolina Crusher. That's driven by Gary Porter. Short little runs, but packed to the gills with action.
And this is single eliminations. If you lose, you're out of here. As Paul said, the Carolina Crusher is driven by this man, Gary Porter. He's been on the circuit a couple of years now. And his competition out of Jefferson City, Missouri in Mad Dog is Bob Breen. And this is a most challenging course for these 1,000-horsepower vehicles in an indoor arena.
Carolina Crusher in close. Take a look at the Crusher as he makes his first pass over those crushed cars. Now the Crusher and Mad Dog are even on the far turn. This is a good run. Crusher in the near line. Mad Dog had an advantage coming to the cars. The Crusher, though, comes across the line first. But Mad Dog can't get stopped, and he tags one of the grooming tractors.
And does some substantial damage to the tractor and got the attention of the operator, we might add. And I think, Paul, here we can see why Mad Dog could not get it stopped. They broke a front differential, the parts and pieces laying everywhere. But again, no injury to the man on that tractor.
We take a look at this run one more time. Look at the Crusher. Look how high they get up in the air, come down, crush even more of those cars that are lined up as an obstacle. Now here in the second view, this is as they're coming back. And you can see at this point, the Mad Dog had an advantage, but the Crusher got a better launch. Went a little further and a little faster.
Indeed, and won it by just a matter of a couple of feet. That turn down at the far end of the course, Paul, I think we'll see as the evening goes on. The driver that can best negotiate that hairpin is going to be the winner here tonight when it's all said and done.
Well, the two of them got together. Let's take a look at this replay angle, because there was Mad Dog coming over to the right while the Crusher tried to roll over to the left. They tagged the rear wheels there, and that may have been the impact that sent the Mad Dog on into the tractor.
Gary, it doesn't get much wilder than that. It doesn't. All of us, we're going for it, you know, we're not letting up one bit. And when I come off the second set of cars, the truck bounced up on the left side, and I was worried more about keeping it from turning over than where Mad Dog was at, and we sort of collided there at the end. Well, he got over here and caught one of the work tractors, but you fortunately were in the right lane not to have to hit anything. That's about as good as it gets in the Astrodome. It is. That's some real good racing down here in Houston. Good luck to you. Okay, thank you.
Now watch this, Paul. Maybe even harder than driving one of these trucks is getting into it.
You got to climb way up there. You remember one year we got a ladder so that I could interview some of the folks?
All right, next up is one of the most popular monster trucks of them all. It is Clydesdale. But first, let's go back down to Pat Patterson and find out what happened to Mad Dog.
You guys got yourself in a real dogfight out there.
Yeah, I drove Gary 3 times in a row. And the last time I thought I had him beat, I beat myself down in the turn, and this time I was determined to beat him. And I knew I had him when I come off the hump out there. And I couldn't tell where he was coming from. Then I seen him out of the corner of my eye coming at me. So I started slowing mine down, and when he bumped me, I don't know whether they broke my steering line off or what, and then they killed my radio, and I couldn't steer mine. And then I did this.
You went over here and got in a tangle with a regular old international case tractor.
That's just a case of one case in another, I guess.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Well, at least he still has a good sense of humor. And look at the front of that thing. Boy, oh boy, you don't want to tangle with the monster trucks.
And that little tractor was borrowed from a local dealer as a courtesy, and they promised to return it all shined up and full of gas. I don't want to be the one that has to explain that. All right, in our next pair, it is David Morris, a smiling young guy in the Equalizer. Does this for a living.
And there's Bennett Clark on Clydesdale from Canton, Georgia. We've seen him quite a bit in the center of the action in the tractor pull. The Chevrolet of Clydesdale. That will be on the far side facing the Equalizer here in the near lane.
Well, Bennett Clark, the far lane, full of confidence, gave our cameraman the thumbs up sign, and it's another beautiful start and great race. Remember, these are four-wheel steering vehicles. How you use the rear wheel steer determines how well you get through that corner, and again, they both do it perfectly.
Well, Bennett Clark is a master, though. He makes up a little distance coming around the corner, but still it is Equalizer that gets to the line first, beating the Clydesdale.
Oh, this is the most competitive monster truck action we have ever seen here in the Astrodome. Let's take a look at the start. It was Equalizer in the near lane with an early advantage, and that was later to pay big dividends.
Well, the Clydesdale wasted an awful lot of time in the air on the first jump. That gave the Equalizer an opportunity to get ahead.
Exactly. When you're up in the air, you don't have any driving wheels on the ground. The crowd loves it, the photographers love it, but it's not good competition then. And here's where that starting line advantage and the low flying paid off for Equalizer.
Well, David Morris, what do you think? That was just about as close a matchup as you can get.
Yeah, Clydesdale, he's a good smooth runner, and I knew I'd have to try to beat him on this first part of the track because I still hadn't got this rear steering deal figured out yet. Had a little trouble with it down there coming over the hill. Once I got straight, though, I had enough power that I could pass him in the air.
Good run.
Thanks.
So David Morris, with the Equalizer, moves ahead in this single elimination competition of the monster trucks. This isn't a monster truck. It's another 4x4 puller as they're ready over on those lanes once again. And we'll take a look at the pullers when we come back.
Football, baseball, rodeo, bingo. They do it all in the Houston Astrodome, but only once a year does it fill with horsepower. The TNT All-American. I'm Steve Evans along with Paul Page and Pat Patterson, and we go back to the 4x4 6,200-pound truck class. Robert Gallahan, that incredible pull of 283 feet. Manuel Marino, the defending champ of the Dome, still in that second position.
Gallahan with 6 feet ahead of the second place pull. Had an incredible pull going. And as you mentioned earlier, Steve, people like Randy McConnell from Alabama, who comes up now, have to fight not only the problems they may have with their own machinery, but also with a course that they might now be dug out a bit.
Well, all of the pullers have favored the left side of the course. I wonder what would happen if somebody went right. Randy McConnell, the yellow fever, he is going to be disappointed with this one.
Yeah, I'm afraid he is, Steve. He came up way short of the line. There's the measurement, 266.65 feet. That's not even in the top 5.
You know, in replay, Paul, of a number of the pulls, we could see maybe it was too much wheel spin or the weight bias towards the rear. I think in this case, Yellow Fever just flat didn't have the oomph to get the job done.
Yeah, I think you may be right. You can see it's a fairly straight run. Everything looks good. Might be just a little lack of horsepower. So Randy can go back to the drawing board, buy a few new pieces, and pump some more ponies into it.
Everything is balanced in this game. Did you feel like when you went into it, you knew what you had, and did you come up short with it?
It felt like it hooked up real good, but I believe it went away down here on the end. The track got bad, I think.
Good run, and the fans sure enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.
Well, Randy McConnell with a little work to do. He's out of this competition here at the Houston Astrodome. Now there's Mr. Sparkle, the next puller. You know, if you love trucks, you got to love these machines that they run here. They treat them with loving care and do some amazing work on them. Earlier, Steve took a look at Mr. Sparkle.
The philosophy of running a four-wheel drive vehicle is much different than any of the two-wheel classes in pulling. For one thing, you're not trying to dangle that front end up in the air a little bit for weight transfer. All four wheels are driving and must be driving hard. So your steering is really done with the steering wheel as opposed to independent braking. Now, as far as suspension is concerned, well, it's quite a bit different. For example, at the rear, there isn't any whatsoever. It is absolutely bolted up solid because the rear wheels are pulling the back end of the truck down anyway. Now, Glenn Davis, who drives this beautiful Sparkle Chevy S10 truck, has a 4-speed transmission. You only use 1 gear per pull, but they have the option of 4, and there's 300 RPM difference between them. He'll watch a couple of pullers and select a gear. If he makes a pull-off, he'll probably go down a gear because of the additional weight that's added to the sled. Oh, and speaking of weight, we said there was none at the back. With a four-wheel drive vehicle, you get all the weight possible, legally possible, on the very front of the truck. That's how it's done.
Amazing little machine, Mr. Sparkle. Glenn Davis is the driver out of Miramar, Florida. He's looking to beat that 283.7-foot pull.
When you name a truck, you better be ready to live up to the name, and that baby does sparkle. Oh, Paul, he got terrific momentum early on in this pull. Glenn Davis has got one going. Glenn Davis, yes, is our new leader. 291 1:21.67 feet. That'll throw Robert Gallahan into shock. I'm sure he thought this late in the action, no one would top his 283. So much for the course wearing out.
Well, I'll tell you, Glenn Davis apparently really studied the course. He decided to take a risk and moved over to the right side. Just exactly what you were suggesting earlier, Steve. Why isn't anybody going down the right side? Maybe he heard you. Boy, it sure paid off. Plus, he did a nice little piece of driving here.
I wonder if he'd give me a percentage of his winnings if he takes this whole deal. All right, let's go down to Pat at the far end to talk with our brand new leader.
Well, Glenn Davis, were you happy with that?
Yeah, I felt really good. I had a good hole shot. I knew it was on the outside track where nobody would have been pulling and come out and took the lead.
And we talked a little bit earlier this afternoon. You felt like this might be your night here at the Astrodome. You still feel that way?
Oh, yeah. I've ran 8 times this year, and 6 of them are first, and I'm going to make 7 tonight.
All right, good luck to you. Hang around. We'll see if you can win it.
Thank you.
Glenn Davis, the new leader, as he takes us into the 290s, but it's fascinating that we have not seen a full pull at 300 feet. Normally, we'll see a full pull, and we'll see a pull-off.
Well, apparently, the TNT officials tonight, Paul, just decided to make the weight transfer device the sled a little extra tough.
You may remember that Pat Patterson was sitting up on this Ford machine a little bit ago as he described these machines to you. This is the Outlaw. Russell DeForest is the driver.
Reflecting for a moment on that earlier pull by Glenn Davis, I wonder if after watching how hard this sled was to pull, he dropped down a gear lower than everybody else. And possibly Russell DeForest has done the same thing. Russell right in the middle of the racetrack gets a little bit sideways. We saw that hurt some earlier pullers, and it's going to hurt him.
Boy, it's hurt him bad, too. This run he's not going to be proud of at all because he comes through at 249.7 feet. Russell DeForest picked the middle of the track. That kind of surprised me. I would have thought when you see a successful run, you try and replicate the thing.
Yeah, you would think so. We have 2 more pullers to go in the class. It will be interesting to see where they go, right, left, or middle.
Well, you know, I think he started well, and then he must have sent some wheel spin or something because he came back out of the throttle and then powered it up again. But by then, his inertia was gone, and he came through with this run. I'm sure he's going to be nodding his head at that.
I think you're right, Paul. You can't get off the throttle and back in it on one of these things and expect to win the class. You might place higher than you would have otherwise, but you're not going to win. All right, the distance to beat, 291.67 feet. Here is our next to the last puller. Obviously, a brand new truck. Donnie Sanders in the Tennessee, and he is hooked. And look at the start here, Paul. Nicely done.
Oh, he's got a nice run going, and this course is capable. We saw that with Glenn Davis's run. Look at the Tennessean, the Chevrolet. He's way down there.
He is. It is laser measured at 289.41 feet. That is good enough for second place behind Glenn Davis.
Well, that was a super little run. He poured a lot of power to it. Apparently, he became aware that this course was capable of holding more power than we had seen earlier. But look, too, he's doing a little bit of steering right there at the start and moving the front end around.
He might have taken number 1, Paul, had that run been just a bit straighter. We talked earlier about toe-in. Well, here on this new truck of Donnie Sanders, we see some dramatic toe-in on the vehicle, more than we have on any of the others. All right, let's go back down to Pat Patterson and find out how Donnie feels about it.
Well, Donnie, what do you think of that pass? Well, I thought he made a good run right then. It hooked real good. The track's biting a lot and everything. I was real pleased with the hook. Might have spit a little more gear in it there. It made a lot of, it took a lot of power to pull it. We haven't heard anybody complain about this track tonight. They've really got it right.
Oh, poor Donnie Sanders missed the number 1 spot by only 2 feet. And here is that final puller. Glenn Davis has the number 1 spot, and he'll be the winner unless Tony Osteen, strapping on his helmet, and the Georgia Rebel can outdistance him. And there's the man that can make a big difference.
Yeah, Ron Hickson brings the decision maker back into place. Glenn Davis has a serious interest in this next run. He's with Pat.
Well, Paul, Steve, Tony Osteen's the only guy left that can knock this man out of a win here at the Astrodome tonight. What we're going to do is let's let him call this run. You ready for this? You got one more guy that can beat you here. He's getting hooked up back there. Tell me how his truck works as he comes down the track.
Tony's a pretty good running truck for a Ford. He's starting over where I started on the far side where nobody else gone there since I ran there.
You think he's going to have a big advantage at that side, or is it really going to matter that much?
I don't think it matters that much. My truck's running super strong right now, and I don't think anybody can beat it right now.
What's going through your mind? What's going through Tony's mind right now as he's looking down the track?
Tony knows he's the last person to do it. He needs to win this one to get back on the road again.
Tony Osteen targeting 291.6 feet.
All right, the green flag is waving.
Tony's revving up, getting ready to start. He's coming out of the hole, getting on the throttle. Now he's got her wide open, but I don't think he'll do it. No, he ain't gonna do it. Yeah!
And you called it, my friend. You're the winner tonight here at the Astrodome. Congratulations, Glenn. A great run for you.
Thank you. I got to thank my sponsor, the Sparkle Corporation, and also Kendall Oil.
Did you know tonight would be your night? I mean, you had these feelings earlier when we talked this afternoon. You had a great pull right off the top. You knew this would be a good night for you.
Yeah, I just got this Greg Kramer motor put together. I ran it 4 times. I got 3 firsts with it. Last week, I had 2 first places, and I just come here feeling strong was going to win this thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, he certainly wasn't overconfident because he did exactly what he thought he could do. Glenn Davis is the champion in the 4x4 class at 291 feet. Donnie Sanders second. Robert Gallahan in third. Manuel Marino, the defending champ, is pushed all the way down to 4th place. The only lady in the category, Donna Webb, she had a very respectable effort, coming in spot number 6.
And coming up next, we continue with round number 2 of the Monster Trucks.
There are few racing vehicles on this planet more unique than monster trucks. I'm Steve Evans along with Paul Page and Pat Patterson in the Houston Astrodome for the TNT All-American. And here is the champion from last year, Paul, Awesome Kong.
Well, as a matter of fact, Steve, we've got a couple of champions out of last year because in the near lane, that will be Nightlife, also a winner. This should prove to be one terrific race.
All right, here you see the man driving the Awesome Kong, and it is truly one of the most powerful, risk-taking operations in monster truck racing. This is Dave Weichserek, the Nightlife 2 driver, a little more conservative, but he always gets the job done. Now, Andy Brass drives the Bigfoot truck, the best-known name in all of monster truck racing. And earlier, in round number 1, watch Bigfoot on the far side of your screen, and you'll see why you don't see him in round number 2.
Bigfoot lined up and ready to go. Now, the rules say that you have to stay in your lane. You can see that Bigfoot got a great start. Was coming around the corner. Now, keep an eye on the Bigfoot. Took a pretty wide swing against Nightlife 2. And then on this jump, whoa, got way out of his lane and then slammed that right front into the ground and flatted it. But the minute he went out of his lane, he was disqualified.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what happened is Andy Brass got a little bit behind and thought, uh-oh, I got to do something quick. And just didn't get a good approach at the final car jump.
Well, as a result of that, it's Awesome Kong over on the far side, Nightlife 2 in the near lane. Something is squirting out there at the back end of Awesome Kong, Steve.
Well, it might be hydraulic fluid. The only effect would be if it all was to bleed out, it might not have the rear wheel steering that he'd like to have. And that is really important, negotiating that hairpin.
Yeah, it might be just a little overpressure. It might be a leak. Who knows? If we keep an eye on Awesome Kong, Nightlife 2 here in the near lane. Awesome Kong getting a nice start. And now fluid's coming out down there at the differential. Awesome Kong has something definitely wrong. And he rolls to a stop as Nightlife 2 heads down to the finish. Nightlife 2 will win this one as something goes wrong with the Awesome Kong.
That was just a beautiful drive by Nightlife 2. And Awesome Kong, you see all the smoke coming out there. Whatever that was spraying out, got in touch with the exhaust system or some other hot part on that truck. And the driver is out having a look.
I wonder if that wasn't some sort of hydraulic line or something. At first we saw it up in the back there, and then you could see, now watch here, down at the differential in the back. And there it is, something squirting out there as well. Whatever it is, it certainly led to the demise of the Awesome Kong.
The second defending champion to fall in competition. Pat?
Well, You wanted this kind of a situation, and you got it exactly like you wanted it tonight.
It's going pretty good. I hope to get in the finals and win it overall. I didn't know what Kong was doing. He's usually a hard runner, and he must score up something on that curve. I seen I had him a little bit, so I just went for it again.
You sure seem consistent tonight, especially down there making that all-important turn coming back up to the finish line.
Well, a lot of guys aren't used to using their rear steering, and I never block mine off. I use it all the time, and I think that's worked for an advantage for me, just using it all the time. I'm familiar with it.
All right, can you win this thing tonight?
You bet.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Well, the rear steer can certainly get you around that final turn a lot quicker, but it also takes a very tender hand. You can see the rear steering working here on the King Crunch as he comes to the line.
Well, Dave said a lot of guys don't use it all the time. That's because in big arenas outdoors, most of the courses are pretty straight. They don't really need it. But that's a sound thinking on his part. Always know where that lever is and exactly what it's going to do for you or against you.
All right. In this matchup, you're going to see the King Crunch. You just saw a good close view of it. And in the near lane, I always love to see this machine, the Grave Digger.
Even more than the machine, I love to see the way Dennis Anderson drives. It's almost like he's got his eyes closed sometimes. It's just in total abandon. Scott Stevens of King Crunch knows that. He'll be looking out his peripheral vision to make sure Grave Digger doesn't bounce in his lane. I mean, he really stays with the Grave Digger driver, Dennis Anderson.
King Crunch, Texan Scott Stevens at the wheel. Gets a little better start. Here comes the Grave Digger, and the Grave Digger up out of his lane. That's a disqualification right there. That's too bad. What a pretty machine.
Boy, I hope I didn't jinx him, Paul. I didn't mean for that to happen. Grave Digger is one incredible machine to watch, and we'll miss seeing him in future competition. But I'll tell you what, that is a disqualification for sure. We don't even have to check with TNT on that.
Well, the red flags were flying, but nice of the Grave Digger. Gave it a little run anyway, something for the fans.
Oh, absolutely. These guys are entertainers as well as competitors. And Paul, it's at times like this, the driver wishes he had some flaps on the thing. He knows that he's tilting off to the left-hand side if he could only right it in air, but it's not to be. Body English doesn't do much in a monster truck. He tried to compensate immediately by turning right, but the truck has too much weight and too much momentum, and Grave Digger is out for the evening. Okay, Scott Stevens certainly isn't. Let's go to he and Pat.
Well, Scott, that's what you wanted. A perfect move down at the bottom of the track, a good, smooth start, and you had Grave Digger covered all the way.
Yeah, you know, we've got a major problem with our steering. It's not working too good. And, you know, we just kind of babied it down that front straightaway, got through that curve, and, you know, we looked pretty sad coming back down that other straightaway. We got the win, and that's what we got. You know, Digger's in third place, and we're in second in the points, and, you know, that puts us 2 more points ahead of him. That's what we needed in Houston.
Well, you're having yourself a spectacular night here in the Astrodome. Great run.
Yeah, if we don't put it on its top with the steering like it is, we may end up on our top. It's not working. Thank you.
Well, he's happy about his victory in the King Crunch, and of course, with the completion now of round number 2, that will send King Crunch into the semifinal round. And there, he will face Nightlife 2. And in the other pairing of the semifinal, it will be the Carolina Crusher versus the Equalizer. The mini rods are coming up next over on the pulling track. We'll be back with more action from the Astrodome right after this.
For the first time in our coverage of truck and tractor pulling, we bring you the snarly little rascals known as the mini rods. Now, a whole bunch of them pulled earlier today in the Astrodome, and these are the tractors that all made a full pull. So now they are involved in what is known in this sport as a pull-off.
I'll tell you what we're looking at is a little dragster here with a low gear. That's what they all are. Look at that thing generate power. Wow, with a roar and a scream. And look at him pull the sled.
But I think the balance was way, way off for Scott Amy from Ida, Michigan. The front wheel should have been dancing a little bit.
Yeah, it should have been able to pull the front end up to try and transfer that weight back. 169.43 feet. Well, that's the benchmark at the moment. Perhaps you noticed that little bitty sled behind these mini rods. Earlier, Steve took a look.
Meet the weight transfer device known as the Ridge Runner. For mini rods, you need a mini sled. And this is it. Now, it may be compact, but it has all the features of its big brothers. There's a rider in here for safety reasons. Should anything go wrong, he can stop the whole act. Now, the most noticeable difference is right here, the weight box. You just don't need as much. Even though these tractors have over 1,500 horsepower, they don't have the weight for traction that would enable them to put on a good show pulling the big sled. But like the big sled, there's a gasoline engine down here that brings the weight box back after a pull as the sled is being towed back by a tractor. Now, like the big guys, it also is transferred through chains and transmissions and rear ends out of diesel trucks. Now, when it is fully transferred and reaches a stop here on top of the skid pan, it can exert about 12,000 pounds as opposed to 60 or 70,000 on the big sleds.
So that's what creates the weight and the challenge. Now, here is Larry Coaster. Now, he is a double amputee. You talk about a man with spirit. Boy, he loves being in this, and perhaps aptly he shows a little bit of his sense of humor calling the machine footloose.
He's a courageous guy, Paul, and very well liked in the mini rod ranks. And it appeared that Scott Amy, the first puller, really didn't throw down much of a gauntlet at 169 feet. So we'll just see how Larry can do. He's about ready to bring up the RPM and squeeze into that throttle, or maybe slam it down. I'm not sure how you drive a mini rod. Looks like he slammed it down to me.
Yeah, he certainly poured the power to that. He's a fellow Hoosier from my home state of Indiana. He has a nice run going. And listen to the power roar up on that thing. Larry Coaster, he's still spinning him as he digs him into the ground.
He was looking for just another inch if he could get it. An awful lot of blow-by was coming out of the bottom of that motor, so it may be just a little bit tired. 248.78 feet. Well, we'll just have to see how that holds up to the onslaught to come. Now, what's underneath the engine as this pull progresses? A certain amount of compression was blowing by the rings into the oil pan and out the blow-by device on the bottom there. If you've got a car that smokes, your family car, you know exactly what I mean. When you take off the oil filler cap, that stuff that comes out is called blow-by. It's going by the rings. Unlike Scott Amy, Larry had the front wheels up nicely for weight transfer and more traction. Larry's always smiling, but this time I think it'll be broad.
Well, let's see if he's smiling this time. Yes, he is. That was a good pull. Well, you know, they changed the weight box a whole bunch. We had a good straight run, so I'm pretty pleased. Maybe it'll hold up. You've been around these guys a long time now. As you look back at the ones that have still got a pull, anybody can beat you? They're all tough. They're all real tough. Hang around with us for a minute. We'll see if you can stay on high. We're going to be number one.
Well, there's no question. They are tough. It's become a tough little class. This is the first time we're seeing it, and it's providing us with some great action.
And I'm glad to see, Paul, that the TNT is really enforcing the safety rules. Take a look. These guys wear no-neck suits and helmets and neck braces and shoulder straps, all the things you should have in an animal like this, really.
You'll also see the drivers follow the rules and from time to time take his hands off the controls to assure everybody that he's neutral. The machines are safe. This turns out, because of those kind of rules, to be a very safe sport.
Boy, Ron didn't waste any time at all. As soon as he saw that green flag, he got on the accelerator pedal. And this is a nice pull. Oh, but that's going to just kill his distance. He got sideways, one wheel driving more than the other. He couldn't correct with the brakes in time. Steering wheel's useless when the wheels are off the ground. Ravander took 226 feet in change, and that will put him in the second spot at the moment from Marion, Michigan.
Now, he's not doing a whole lot of steering with those little front wheels. He does it with the rears, and you can see he got a little sideways right off, and the correction pulled a lot of power away, and that affected the run.
Well, Ronald, it wasn't quite what you wanted, but you made a good effort at it. Yeah, I didn't have my weight quite right on the pull-off. I missed that a little bit. Seems like every time you go up and down this thing, you learn something. You pick something up then? Oh, yeah, every time. Good luck. Thank you.
So Ron Vandertook, at this point in the competition, finds himself in the second position. Larry Coaster, with a nice effort at 248 feet, is the leader. We'll be back with more action from the Astrodome.
We're back at the Houston Astrodome. I'm Paul Page with Steve Evans. This is earlier. This is Tommy Cordell, who had a really wonderful run going for himself and would have made it into the situation we have with several full pulls and therefore the pull-off. But then he got all over the place. Something broke out of the bottom of the engine, kicked some oil out. That lit up, and, well, obviously, his day was done. That's not something you're going to repair here in the Astrodome. As he walked away, he talked with Pat Patterson.
Tommy, that was a fiery ending to a pretty rough run there. That thing broke to the left on you, and you managed to still keep it all the way down the track.
Yeah, we managed to get it down there. It come back on its own. I didn't have to break it in. It's just an oil fire is all it is.
Well, that was wishful thinking on Tommy's part because further inspection showed there was far more damage than a leaking valve cover gasket. Here you see a tremendous fire, and why earlier I talked about the necessity in these machines, particularly for strong driver safety equipment. And it all paid off for Tommy Cordell, but unfortunately he was not to become the 7th driver in the pull-off. And Paul, you notice with all his problems, Tommy pulled that sled very easily. That's not the case now. Every competitor that was involved in the first round knows they better make more power and probably use a lower gear if they're going to pull this much heavier sled in the pull-off.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talking, a lot of thinking, and some changes on some of the machines. Well, that wasn't a hook. He wants to get that machine back in the exact place that he scouted out earlier.
Well, that's why he's won 4 championships in this class. We're talking about Glenn Gunther in the Tough Enough. And the attention to paint and detail and chrome and polish shows a lot of pride.
Oh, you see some beautiful machines anytime you come to a tractor pull. There's the distance to beat. Glenn Gunther is a man that definitely knows how to do it. Let's see if he can actually get it done. Green flag is out, and he powers it up fast and quick, comes out with a good run.
The front end came up exactly when he needed the weight transfer for traction. Oh, this is not a good run. This is a perfect run. What they call a full pull.
Unbelievable. Nice. It was kind of fun, too. While the rears were spinning and the front end was off the ground, Glenn was still kicking the steering wheel back and forth a little bit, hoping it might steer some.
Boy, here's how it ought to be done in the mini rod class. Watch Glenn Gunther. I was worried for a minute there, Paul, that he had the weight off. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that centrifugal clutch was going to kick in just at the right time, bring up that front end as the box came where he needed the weight transfer. What a beautifully balanced, prepared tractor and a fine drive as well. Let's go down to Pat to talk to the full puller.
Well, Glenn, Tough Enough was tough enough tonight. You did a great job out there.
Thank you very much.
How was the pass? Is the track still as good as it was in that first pass? And did you make the adjustment that you thought you needed to make the next full pull?
The track is staying together real good. We moved a little weight. We did okay.
Good luck. Thank you.
Well, if the track is holding together good enough to give him a full pull, it may hold together for the rest of the competitors. There's Belle Blosser backing up, ready to hook up for her pull. Now, you see the white light. That tells you that everything's in neutral right now. The safety wire is hooked up, the chain is hooked up, and we're ready to go.
They hand push the mini rod forward to take the slack out of the chain. Here is Belle Blosser from Stanley, Virginia, a hillbilly and darn proud of it in the Hillbilly Shaker. And does she have a task? She's got to make a full pull if she possibly can.
That started off a little slow, but now with an awful lot of power and is all over the course. Well, I wonder if she can save this one. Over to the left, drifts back to the right, but she's still going. This is a good run.
This is incredible. Listen to the crowd. She was sideways. Everything went wrong that could go wrong, but that big supercharged Hemi performed for her, and she will go into a pull-off of a pull-off.
Steering that machine with the power and traction of the rear tires.
The forward speed of the mini rods may only be about 25, 30 miles an hour, but the wheel speed is 140 miles an hour or better. So they spend a lot of time maintaining these high revving engines, but they spend more time on tire maintenance than anything else, because unlike the four-wheel drive trucks who can buy specially built competition tires, the mini rods still rely on a tractor tire that starts out with lugs this high. They have to grind all of that down. It's very time consuming. You can spend 15 hours just getting a set of tires ready for competition like we're seeing today. Now, some of the competition, including driver Scott Amy, who we saw at the top of the show, have tried a new lug design. Now, this is not it. This is standard. He has changed the lug design more radically to try to throw the dirt out away from the front of the sled, so he's not pushing the dirt that he himself dug up. Be interesting to see if it works. The tires, they're absolutely critical. The man with the best set probably wins.
Well, Scott is currently 5th in this pull-off, and we are already faced with a pull-off of the pull-off. Boy, this little division is really creating some excitement.
And the final puller is Ronald Baker in the Equalizer out of Lewisburg, Ohio. And I'm sure Ron was as amazed at the pull of Belle Blosser as we all were. That was just unbelievable. In fact, Pat Patterson is with her.
Nice to see that smile. You got exactly what you wanted out of the pass.
Right.
What adjustment did you make, Belle, in between the two pulls?
Just checked the air in the tires and left the weight just like it was. It was a little light first time.
Front wheels never moved. They were right there the whole way through that pass.
Yeah, they should have come up just a little bit, but I'd rather leave them down than have them come up too far.
Maybe some championship style in that particular pass, huh?
I'd like to think so.
Good run.
Thank you.
Well, not many changes for Bell. I wonder what she'll do now, because she will have to run again against Glenn Gunther in the pull-off. And let's see if this man can get into the pull-off as well. This is Ronald Baker. The machine is the equalizer. If he wants to stay in competition, he's going to have to make a full pull.
And he knows that. You can bet on it, Paul. In fact, he's taking a little extra time concentrating. Now he gets with the power. Not much early wheel speed. Here comes the buck. Oh, he is crossed up first to the right, now to the left. Doing a good job of steering, but the engine lets go. Oh, boy, did it let go.
That grenaded big time. You suddenly saw a pop at the bottom, and look at the oil pour out there. He was driving it, though, until the engine let go. He was still trying to recover and doing a pretty fair job of it, but only 238.5 feet for Ron Baker, and what probably amounts to some fairly expensive repair.
That's right. That'll be a big bite out of Ron Baker's racing budget. Now, he got in trouble. Well, let's see, right here. First, the thing moved to the right, and remember, they have independent rear brakes like an agricultural tractor. And if the driver doesn't react quick enough, he gets behind the motion of the machine, and it's very difficult to catch up with it. That's what happened to Ronald, anyway.
And then as he drifted back and forth, there was just too much stress on the engine. And all of a sudden, something popped through the bottom of the pan, and there it is. And out came all of the oil. You can see a couple of pieces bouncing away. That's probably a couple $100.
Maybe a couple of $1,000. Okay, let's take a look at the leaderboard. It is Glenn Gunther with a full pull. Bill Blasser matched him with a spectacular full pull, followed by Coaster, Baker, and Vandertook. The only two that will continue in competition, of course, Gunther and Blasser. And when that happens, they'll be pulling a heavier sled. Well, I don't have to tell anybody what's coming up next. Monster truck action. We'll have it for you here in the Astrodome when we come back to the TNT All-American. Stay with us. This should be great.
Ready in the Houston Astrodome for the semifinals of the monster trucks. The equalizer sits over in the far lane. The Carolina Crusher here on the near side. This should be a really terrific matchup.
That's right. In round number 2, we saw earlier both drivers, both trucks performed flawlessly.
Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher. It'll be David Morris in the equalizer. The revs begin to come up now as the equalizer finds the starting position that he wants, rolls back, and then forward.
As the competition becomes more equal, the start becomes more important. We have seen 2 races so far tonight where the start paid off at the finish with a victory. Carolina Crusher dropping it down in gear. They use automatic transmissions in these trucks. At one time, they were fairly simple to drive. You kind of took off this straight line and crushed some cars, and the promoter gave you some money, and you went to the next place. You got to be a real race truck driver now to get the job done.
Equalizer got a great start there. The Crusher drifted out toward the line, but he got it under control. The rear wheel steer so important on this tight course here at the Astrodome, and the Crusher now begins to pull away. Something went wrong, I think, on the equalizer. The Crusher takes the win and goes to the final.
Well, the equalizer, Paul, has been disqualified at the turn for crossing the center line. So the win goes to the Carolina Crusher.
Let's take a look at that again. The equalizer up in the air with a nice start, a nice hole shot, came down a little askew. Boy, he took a whale of a bounce there. Now they're coming to the turn at the far end. And take a look at the equalizer on the left-hand side of your screen as he comes over, and yep, you bet you're right, Steve. He got across that line, and when you do that, the game is over. The Carolina Crusher's the winner. Now here, though, take a look at the Carolina Crusher, because as he comes to the final jump, way up in the air, of course, at this point, he doesn't know that the equalizer is already disqualified.
But that is a textbook leap to the finish line, and he lands flat. Not nose down, not tail down, and that's exactly what it takes to have a good competitive run. And Gary Porter just gave everybody a driving lesson there.
Well, Gary, it gets better, and it gets better, and it gets better, and you're going to the finals here at the Astrodome.
It is. I've been chasing Equalizer all last year. He beat me in the points, and I'm going for him this year. I'm going to try to win the points championship and put him away.
Good smooth start. Seemed like the truck stayed right in place over the cars. A great hit there coming back to the finish line. Just a good, consistent run.
It seems to be the truck seems to be cornering good and everything. Coming off the second set of cars and bouncing a little bit, but the race is over, so who cares?
Now, who will he face? Will it be the Nightlife 2, Dave Wazorek, or King Crutch, driven by Scott Stevens?
Boy, is that a gorgeous color on Nightlife 2, Paul. Ooh, a candy apple something.
I tell you what, we have two beautiful machines coming up here. These are just gorgeous. I love the Crunch. Now, as you can imagine, you don't drive these things to and from the races. You got to put them in a trailer, but they don't necessarily fit.
The only thing harder than getting a monster truck like King Crunch around a tight circuit like the one on the Astrodome floor is getting King Crunch from the Astrodome to Salt Lake City, Utah, its next stop on the tour. Now understand that with these big wheels and tires, King Crunch doesn't fit in that trailer. So it takes about a half a dozen guys when the show is over to remove 48 lug nuts using this great big 4-ton jack. Then when they load it, it really looks silly because it's got the little bitty trailer rubber on it. It's not a pretty picture. Kind of ruins the whole illusion of what a monster truck should look like. Now, what happens to the big wheels and tires? They come in that door that I just came in and obviously are jammed right against the wall here. Witness the big rubber circles. All in all, there's a lot of work involved in moving this group around.
Well, right now, they look exactly like they should. There is the King Crunch. This is the second fight in the semifinal round to determine who will come up against the Crusher.
And anybody who thinks they run these engines easy just saw how lean they can get by the time they reach the semifinals. They're making an awful lot of horsepower, and the drivers, Paul, have to be physically fit. You'll notice none of these guys is anything but lean and hard because they take a tremendous beating inside these things.
And just because the motor isn't visible there, don't think that they aren't making a lot of horsepower. It takes a lot to kick these machines up in the air. We've got a dead even start.
Absolutely. No advantage coming into the turn. It's a beautiful turn, but it is Nightlife 2 that got straight down quicker, and then suddenly had some steering problems, and King Crunch, if he can stay on the course, will win it. Yes, King Crunch will go to the final,
where the Crunch will face the Carolina Crusher. I'm not sure what happened there. It really looked like Nightlife 2 had the better run going into the corner. Let's take a look at the replay going into that turn. Nightlife 2 is over on the left of your screen. He turned in early, had a little bit of a lead here. He was really using the rear wheel steer, got the back end around nicely, but you can see he had the front end pointed wrong when he got back on the power. That turned him toward the center line, and he had to get off of the throttle.
Well, it is such an advantage to get turned around first. Watch the truck in the far lane, Nightlife 2. He has that advantage, but when he stabs the throttle to go for it, the engine backfires, and he was done.
Replay that run for me. You look like you came off the line good. Tell me what happened from there on.
Yeah, you know, since we've been having so much steering problems, I want to beat him to the first turn and make him make the mistake this time. And he did exactly what we wanted. We got to the first turn real good, got through the turn. It was basically pretty well the way I wanted it. I messed up a little bit, but Dave did a little worse.
All right, you're a veteran, but when you go to the finals in a place like the Astrodome, you still get a little butterflies.
You know, just because we have so much trouble here every year, but we're ready for the final, and we're really going to turn it hard in the final.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, so he's worried. Scott Stevens a little bit about his past performances here at the Astrodome. They've not been what he would have wanted. Well, King Crunch completes that victory in the semifinals, and it sets the stage for his combat against the Carolina Crusher. The Monster Truck Finals will be coming up in a little bit here at the TNT All-American. But first, Steve, something you and I have never seen before. A double pull-off in the mini-rods. That's coming up next.
Well, seldom does a competitor in truck and tractor pulling pull more than 2 times on an evening. Not true in the mini-rod class tonight, as there is a double pull-off. The money is on the line between 2 competitors, 1 male and 1 female.
Yeah, and I wonder what they have done to change the setups between the last run and this one. Obviously, it would seem to me you'd have to do something. The course has been regroomed. It's going to be nice and neat. You're going to have to think about, what did I do on that last run? It was perfect because it gave me a full pull, but I've got to improve it. Glenn Gunther on the Tough Enough, hooked up, ready to run.
Well, maybe you just leave the thing alone in the case of these mini rods. They don't have that selective transmission we saw in the four-wheel drive. You just hope you've got more power than your competitor. Glenn Gunther, tough enough. Is it tough enough?
Ooh, the front end begins to bounce a little bit on him, though he does keep it off the ground and keeps it going. Glenn Gunther, the weight transfers back and it digs into a stop.
Well, it looked good, Paul, but you never know until you see the other competitor with the re-weighted sled. All right, the distance comes up at 227.71 feet, so Bell knows exactly what she has to shoot for.
Yeah, they must have really added some weight and speed to the sled on this one to come up only to the 227-foot mark. Let's take a look at this run. You can see he got the front end off the ground and had to steer it with the rears a little bit very early on, and that takes away from the straight line.
No, it's possible that Glenn took off a little too much weight from the front axle and put it to the rear looking for some more traction there, figuring the heavier weight would keep that front end down. But that didn't work out. But still, we don't know how good it is. I wonder what Glenn thinks about it.
What do you think? Well, it was a good run. They shortened it up because of the extra weight and the faster movement of the sled. We'll see in just a minute if it'll hold up.
Indeed we will, as Belle Blaser and her hillbilly shaker from the state of Virginia is the last mini rod to determine the payout here at the TNT All-American.
Yeah, this will make the decision. She knows exactly what she has to do. She has the advantage of having seen the previous run, so she knows what the track is doing to her.
What she has to have, though, Paul, is a straight run, something she didn't have when she got into this double pull-up. It was amazing that she made it to this stripe. She's got to get that thing to go straight.
227 feet is the distance to beat. It's all now on the lady in the cockpit. She's got to figure out exactly how to get that thing straight down, how to keep the braking action on the rear tires right. As she begins to pour the power, she came in nice and easy. Boy, it was a nice little start for her.
And much straighter than it was before. Oh, until now, she is double crossed up, and that just killed that pull. The winner of the class will be Glenn Gunther. And boy, he earned it, having to pull 3 times.
Yeah, 167 feet for Bell. You said it, Steve. She can't drift all over the course. She did, and it was over. Let's go down and talk with the winner. Here's Pat Patterson.
Congratulations. A great show for you and your team here at the Astrodome tonight. It just goes to show why you're a 4-time champion, and you were in championship style tonight.
Thank you very much. We did our best, and we hope the people enjoyed the show.
Well, it's not often that you come and you get to see 2 pull-offs. And was there any question at all as to whether you wanted to go back and pull it off?
Well, we discussed it, but a pull of this magnitude, you know, you take the gloves off and you go for it.
Well, congratulations. A great showing here in the Astrodome tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You know, you set up your racing budget. You know you're going to pull once if you do badly, twice if you win or place very high. In Glenn's case, he had to go 3 pulls, and that's pretty expensive.
Well, Bell got a pretty good start going, but almost right away, the machine began to drift. You can see she really wants it to come back over to her right, but it isn't going to do it. She's working those brake levers. It doesn't come back for her. Let's talk with Bell right now. She's with Pat.
Well, Bell, no substitute for finishing first, second tonight in the Astrodome, but a great effort out of you and your team.
Well, the motor was real hot, so I just shut it off.
Did you get the kind of start that you wanted off the line down there? Or did you feel it right when you got on the throttle?
No, it never hooked up. That's why I quit with it. It wasn't any use to punish the motor.
Well, the fans love you here in the Astrodome. Good run and a good second-place finish.
Thank you.
Yes, a great job by that game lady, and that's good racing sense. When you know you can't win it, get off the pedal and save it for the next time. Glenn Gunther, the winner. Belle Blaser in the 2nd place. Larry Coster gets 3rd place money. Ronald Baker 4th. And in the 5th slot is Ron Vandertuck. Now, there are only 2 vehicles left in competition here in the Astrodome. And they are ground-pounded monster trucks, the final of which is coming up when we rejoin you here in Houston, Texas.
Welcome back to the Houston Astrodome. I'm Paul Page with Steve Evans. We're here for the final round of the monster trucks now at the TNT All-American. The Carolina Crusher in the near lane. Over on the far side is King Crunch. Scott Stevens versus Gary Porter.
And from what we've seen in early eliminations, Paul, I can't pick a favorite here. Both these guys, Scott Stevens and Gary Porter, have driven beautifully, used their head, used that rear wheel steering to make excellent hairpin turns. Maybe who leaves first could be the difference here.
Well, the Crunch has decided to take a position a little bit back from the starting line while the Crusher has moved up a little bit forward. They are both ready. They're both watching for the start. Now the Crunch comes forward, stages into position, and we are ready to go.
As badly abused as this track has become during the evening, it's going to take good sense of the drivers to get the right lift, the right one off the jump. A beautiful start by both drivers.
Yeah, but the Crusher almost goes over on the nose at the first jump, but it sure gave him the impetus to get around to that corner. But look at here. As the Crunch picks up the lead, the Crusher with one big jump trying to catch him. But the Crunch comes across the line first. King Crunch with the victory here in the Houston Astrodome. Good run.
And an all-out run by both drivers. Let's take a look at the replay. Even though the Crusher here landed on all four, it got tipped up on its nose. Gary Porter had to be scared to death at that point, and we thought maybe he was completely out of it, but that was not to be. Gary Porter stayed right with it. Another beautiful jump coming back. Again, landing a bit on the nose, but it was a fine job of driving. Now it wants to rear up and go over backwards. This man really had his hands full, Gary Porter. He did everything he could to beat the blue truck on the right side, if you're frank, driven by Scott Stevens. And here we can see the margin of victory for Stevens. He was across the line as his competitor was still flying through the air.
Yeah, but Steve, I'm not so sure of the result. Look at this. The officials having some kind of conversation with Scott Stevens.
The gist of that conversation, Paul, seems to be that Stevens is being disqualified. Something about cutting the corner.
Well, we can take a look at the corner here on this replay. Scott Stevens on the left turned early, virtually eliminated the jump at the far end, and they've decided as a result of that he's disqualified. Pat?
Well, gentlemen, it's a tough break. Anytime you come to the Astrodome, you have as many good runs as Scott Stevens has had in here tonight, only to have it taken away from you. There's supposed to be some white lines down there, and you thought you were where you were supposed to be.
Yeah, you know, the drivers' meeting, they didn't make no point to say that all four tires had to go over the hill. You know, they said we were racing between white lines. That's what we did. You know, it's just a rule, and, you know, evidently we did wrong tonight.
Well, it's a tough break for you, but the fans love the show that you and the Crusher put on in the final.
Yeah, you know, we just tried, and, you know, we were pushing the corner, and it just didn't work. Thank you.
So with Scott Stevens' disqualification, Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher becomes the new winner.
As luck will have it, when you do everything right, it still pays off. You really had a tough time with that run, but King Crunch disqualified, and you're the winner in the Dome tonight.
It was. I don't like to win like that, but, you know, rules are rules, and I went down further than he did to make the turn, and, you know, so all four tires would come over the hill, and he cut it a little short. You know, and this time it cost him the race.
Winning in the Astrodome means a lot to you, I know. You come down here looking for this kind of a night.
It is. This is the year's biggest event right here, and this is what I look forward to every year, coming out here to the Astrodome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, as tight as the points chase is among the monster truck drivers, Gary Porter will take it any way he can get it. We salute all of our winners here in the Dome, the 4x4 truck champion, Glenn Davis, Mini Rods, Glenn Gunther, and of course, monster trucks, Gary Porter. For Paul Page and Pat Patterson, I'm Steve Evans saying so long from the TNT All-American in the Houston Astrodome. We hope you enjoyed the show.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Supervising producer, John B. Mullen. Produced and directed by Mark Kuchin. A promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P.
For 7 seasons, Diamond P Sports' award-winning American Sports Cavalcade series on TNN has brought you a wider variety of motorsports than any other, and with more cameras than you normally see. And it's because of the talented people who man these viewfinders, Diamond P has been able to produce an exciting new video entitled, And They Walked Away. Incredible crashes from stock car racing, motocross, IMSA and SCGE road racing, NHRA drag racing, Eastern modifieds, even swamp buggies, and more. To get your copy of And They Walked Away, send $24.95 plus $3.50 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Or better yet, call 1-800-453-9300. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-453-9300.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond